This is The Wealth Puzzle with Michael Mansfield from the Lynn Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Michael provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is The Wealth Puzzle with Michael Mansfield.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are, I'm Tana, and Mike. Yay!
I'm Mike.
At the Lynn Group, and we are going to be discussing some really important information today. Hopefully, it'll give you a little more confidence in what you are probably hearing in the news. We're going to look at some data and some facts, and we got a lot to talk about this morning.
We should do the gas comparison first, Tana. Have you bought gas recently?
I haven't. Actually, I haven't. I know.
You should drive more.
I love walking, though. It's so beautiful outside. I like to just walk to pick up the kids. So, yeah, I don't do a whole lot of driving.
Excited to say I paid $5.56 on Saturday.
Ouch.
A gallon of gas.
Ouch.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that is crazy.
It's crazy. And I saw the national average. So last week there was an article that said the national average on the news, it was at 380 something.
That's pretty much where we're at.
It just went over 4.
Okay.
Yeah, but when I was in Texas a month ago, I paid $2.80.
Okay.
$2.89, and some guy was complaining at the gas station of how high it was because 2 years ago I paid $1.64 by the airport. So
yeah, no, I know, it's crazy.
It's amazing. Look, there's a lot of chaos going on right now. I mean, it is daunting, and I'm finally, it's like starting to weigh on me, right? Tana and I show we've always been the glass is half full. I still believe what I believe, and that is that there's 2 things that drive markets: emotions and numbers. I believe the numbers are still strong. They're still there. They justify the market going up. The problem is emotions always weigh on us, right?
Right.
And emotions have been weighing. I mean, you go back 2 weeks ago on Saturday, Putin starts talking about nuke stuff, and I remember my heart sinking. It's like,
yeah,
oh gosh, what are we talking about? This can't be real. And then, over the weekend, kind of the same thing, I'm watching the news, there's all this footage, there's all this drama, and it's just really weighing because the guys just carpet bombing the country, and, there ain't going to be much left when this is all said and done. And it's tragic.
It is. Absolutely.
And, I don't know what the right answer is, because it's very interesting to follow all of the back and forth, hey, should we have a no-fly zone? And then Putin says, anyone that does that, I'm going to be mad. And then they say, well, just kidding. We don't want you madder.
Yeah.
It is
a lot of push and pull.
One heck of a mess.
Yeah, absolutely.
The reality is, I think you and I were talking about it last week, is, this is a social, moral, humanitarian crisis. This is disgusting and horrific and sad that the world does junk like this. The reality, though, of what Tana and I do is we have to kind of boil it all down to individual situations, right? Our job is to help individuals make sure that their retirement is intact. Remember, Tana and I, if things get ugly, guess what? We still have our faculties. We can still go to work and we can still reinvent ourselves. I'm going to go get a job at Denny's here pretty quickly.
No,
just
you're
kidding.
not.
All right, I'm not. It's just funny how you like what you think about on your free time.
You kind of dream about it sometimes when it gets real hectic.
You work at Lowe's and tell people where to find
get a different
screws.
job.
Plumbing's over there.
Something less stressful.
I love what I do. I know you do, Tana.
Yeah, I do.
I like the challenge. I like the numbers. I like trying to understand and navigate it and help people with it. But the reality is this stuff weighs on us just as much as it weighs on all of our listeners and all of our viewers. And it stinks. And so what our job is to try to bring you unbiased information to help you make informed decisions without getting the Mr. Emotion bug really destroying thoughts. One of the things we talked about last week, Tana, is we had some historical charts, and we were saying, hey, what happens during conflicts? And one of the things that we brought up looking at a number of previous conflicts is the adage of or a historical context of by the invasion, that historically, once the invasion happens with a lot of these things, historically, that's really at the bottom of the market. And one way or another, the market's been very volatile since our last show in just 1 week.
Right.
But what's the reality? The reality is the market's still a little bit higher from when the invasion started so far. You know,
Very
it doesn't mean it
interesting.
doesn't go down.
Right.
It went up, it went down, it went up, it went down. And so it's just been kind of bouncing around. But at the moment, the S&P, the NASDAQ, things like that have been trending a little over 1% higher from when the invasion started. And so, you know, you start to wonder, okay, this is interesting. The war has gotten visually worse than what people thought, right? The rhetoric hasn't seemed to improve.
Right.
Yet the stock market hasn't full-blown imploded. I mean, even something like in the last couple of days, we've watched the price of a barrel of oil hit a 15-year high.
Yeah.
Oil hasn't been this high since I think 2007 or 2008. You know, now it's gonna sting us all a little bit, right? Because it's gonna cause the cost of our fuel to go up. It's gonna cause everything to go up a little bit based on transportation. So it doesn't help the theme of inflation. But once again, everything kind of goes back to like the higher moral ground here. And the reality is not that we want to, but if we got to pay a few more bucks for things, and this is, you know, one of our jobs as humans on Earth to try to combat what's going on with Mr. Putin, then it kind of is what it is. You know what? A little bit of pain hopefully will solve the problem. Hopefully. I have a fake wood table, but I knocked on it anyways.
I have real wood. I'll knock on it.
Last couple of years, they've invented words for people like you. We won't share them here. We won't add to that.
No, we won't. That was awesome.
Here's an interesting article. So Tana sent me this over the weekend, and I thought it really kind of nailed a lot, because remember, a lot of what we're worried about is the numbers. If the numbers can hold true, if things can continue to make sense, then all of the sudden, mysteriously, one day the market's going to grind a whole lot higher, a whole lot quicker, and people say, "Oh, whoops, what happened?"
Yeah,
you know, this is historically what has almost always happened,
and you don't want to miss it.
I guess before I show Tana's article, I'll kind of pull up my economist thing real quick that I like to use, where I just follow economic data. Let me make this a little bigger. So last week was a great week, right? We got jobs numbers that came in. We had almost 700,000 jobs created in February. Remember, we're living in the tale of two cities here, right? The chaos of the news, the emotion of the world, all of this anxiety just shaking the heck out of us. And then all of a sudden, behind the scenes, though, we have the numbers coming out. And oddly enough, the numbers don't seem to be disappointing.
Right.
In February, remember, all this war junk's been going on basically in February. Yeah, the invasion started, but everyone knew the invasion was basically happening 2 weeks before that. There was almost 700,000 jobs created in February. They had estimated like 420,000 jobs. This was a blowout number. Now, what's interesting, Tana, do you remember the thing I criticized in the January's jobs report by any chance?
Oh, well, yeah. So
you're getting close.
I know. It's right there.
Hourly wage went, or no, hourly amount of hours worked.
Went down.
Hours worked went down.
Right. Went down. Right.
Went down. So what we talked about was, I threw her on the spot there. You don't remember a month ago what we talked about specifically? What's wrong with you? So the average amount of hours went down. And so even though there was good jobs created in January, when you figure out the math of how much hours were lost, it still kind of took the air out of the excitement of the report.
Right.
Well, conversely, February was fundamentally different. In February's report, I know it's hard to see here in the small print, but the report was a 0.8% increase in total number of hours worked. That was huge. So not only did we create new jobs,
right,
also the average amount of people working, the amount that they worked was a little more. And that's huge. That's that much more payroll tax. That's that much more money people make. It's that much more economy created.
Right.
All was great. Oddly enough, too, in the report in December and January, 92,000 jobs were revised up. So, I mean, this was great. I like this. And once again, it kind of plays into that theme. We need strong economics.
Yeah.
If we have strong economics, in the end, things will work themselves
Right.
out. If we have bad economics with emotional chaos, then we're all going to be living in Tana's compound
No, I don't have a
or 100-acre estates
I don't have 100 acres. Sorry.
with a gate. She got guards, gate guards.
Oh dear.
Don't we all wish? The all right. Going back to Tana's article. I'm sorry, Tana. I didn't
Okay,
mean
it's
to
okay.
deflect. I don't know. I'm making up a word there. I don't know what I did. Digress, ingress, regress. I don't know. Anyways, this was an interesting article. I appreciate you sending me, Tana, because it really highlights further numbers. So one of the things, CNBC has these rapid updates where they're always bugging economists and analysts for data because, you know, they're the leader of information. So they always like to put stuff out there. And so they run with 14 forecasts from the US economy, and they look at GDP and they start to create these month over month numbers. And so, like in the pretty chart, if you're watching this on YouTube or Rumble, you see the blue and the orange charts. So the blue numbers are what analysts thought would be GDP growth for each quarter this year. And then the orange numbers are what they currently estimate. And so for the first quarter, they estimate about a 2% GDP. And then they're expecting a higher second quarter GDP. But blah, 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 blah. You boil it all down, even though you see for the second, third, and fourth quarter, the orange bars went down a little bit, they're still estimating third quarter GDP to be, 2022 GDP growth to be over 3%.
Yeah.
Now that's good, right?
That is good.
Last year's GDP was just revised up to 7%.
Right.
Now it's interesting. You know, I get some emails from some people and we get some comments, and you know, the word stagflation was thrown around. One person that we're good friends with, I won't say their name. It rhymes with Darren Dauntz. You know who you are.
We love him.
It was an internal joke to him. So
no, I know. I think it's great.
He said that I didn't live through the 70s and 80s. I didn't live through the 70s for sure, but Tana did. And
well, part of them.
That's good, right?
I was pretty young.
So Tana was like 6 during stagflation. So,
yes.
You know, I'm sure she very well
totally
remembers it. She probably wrote essays in 3rd grade about it and did economic forecasts. Just kidding. I was a baby. I was born in 81, so I was around for 3 hours of it. Anyways, what is stagflation? Though stagflation is an interesting one, right? It's the rise in prices defined by inflation. So we've got that piece of the puzzle right now, right? We got a lot of inflation, and then it's got the decline of growth. So the decline of GDP growing down. So you have rising prices, lowering growth. The biggest catalyst historically of defining stagflation, though, when you look at declining growth, is really about an increase in unemployment, right? And so from the 70s and 80s, there was something created called the misery index. And the misery index kind of played off of that and said the more people that become unemployed and then the more that prices rise, obviously the more pain we get, the more misery we get. And so they kind of track that index. And to be fair, the index has been going up because the costs have been going up. But what I thought was interesting is as we try to define, you know, what would really constitute the concept of stagflation, I mean, you could make a mathematical argument maybe now that because we have high inflation and technically a decline in GDP, right? Last year, your GDP was 7%. This year, it's only going to be 3%. So you say, oh my gosh, I've got declining growth. I've got increased costs. That's like the making for the story. The problem is the story's still weak, right? Because you come back to like my earnings report. One of the things I didn't mention is the unemployment rate dropped to 3.8%. Full employment is somewhere between 4 and 5%. So technically the country is fully employed. We don't exactly have the phenomenon at the moment where we have an increasing unemployment rate. Still mathematically, if anybody cares, we still have less jobs in the economy than pre-COVID. And that's because some people have left the labor market.
Right.
So we still have a low unemployment rate like pre-COVID, but less people working, I think by the tune of 1.5 or 2 million jobs. So it'd be nice to pick those up. But to that theme, stagflation is a concept. It is a concern. It is one of those things that could come to fruition. I don't know. Was that the right word I used? I don't know.
Yeah, that is the right word.
I did it. So here, I pulled up GDP growth though. Year over year GDP growth rate. So if anyone's watching this on the TV, the little blue line kind of shows where GDP was and if it's going up or going down every year. So at the bottom of the page, the red and green bars kind of say, hey, it went up 1 year 5%. It was down because it came down less than what it was the year before. So the reality is, when you track the change of GDP growth, it's constantly red and green. It's constantly up and down. And when you look at this from, where do we go back to 1960 to now, even though it's one of those ironic websites where it says now, but it doesn't have 2021 or 22.
Right. That's a bummer.
Well, they just haven't processed all the data yet, right?
Okay.
That's still kind of finalizing. So, but when you look at it since the 60s, between 2019 and 2020, anyone remember what happened then? COVID.
Of course.
Remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
I don't know. I don't know if anyone remembers it. No one talks about it anymore. Everyone's busy talking about the war. So anyways, we had the worst contraction ever in GDP, really, if you look at it this way, ever recorded, right? I mean, that's the lowest little bubble we got on the map here ever since the 70s. And so you have this massive contraction in GDP, right? It became a negative number. So that was very concerning. Prior to that, though, what was GDP? It was just floating around this 2-3% range.
Normal, yeah.
And so you kind of get into the historical norms of what the feds want.
Right.
If we can get GDP growth of 2%, if we can keep inflation under 2%, it just kind of keeps things normal and bouncing around and moving around. And so prior to the COVID mess, we had low inflation, a little bit of GDP growth, but nothing too exciting. And then all of a sudden it craters out. Now, to put it in perspective, GDP for 2021 was 7%.
Yeah, that's
right.
fantastic.
That's a pretty big growth rate. It's going to pop us way back up.
Right.
Already in 2022, it's estimated to be over 3%. Well, I mean, over the last 10 years, that's actually a historically high growth rate. That's a positive. We look at that. So now technically it's not going to be as high as it was last year, but that's because last year is going to be almost also the highest. There's a phenomenon, Tana, that's always funny about things, that commonly when you look at rates of returns, the worst and the best are closely related. And this is where people screw up with investing, is you'll have the worst decline ever recorded.
Okay.
Followed by the best decline ever recorded. And so even
followed by the best increase or decline?
I don't know. Both. No. Normally you get the decline first and then the increase.
Right.
So for example, you go back just a couple weeks ago, we had the worst decline for the year happen on a Monday, but then just a few days later we had the best increase in 6 months happen. And so it's interesting because if you get into the emotional psychology of saying everything is bad, everything is scary, I want to sell, you miss out on those handful of days, and those are the most impactful ones for most portfolios.
Yeah, very crucial.
So it's pretty interesting to see that if our GDP is over 3% this year, and that holds true, and then on top of it, if analysts who know everything are right about inflation. Let me come down here to inflation. Oh, they put an ad on here. That's real nice. I can't show the chart and the inflation. So basically what it says, inflation at the moment is kind of around 4%. They expect it to be under 2.5% by the end of the year. And so they're, kind of messing with the numbers, but they're tracking it on a 12-month trend. And so if that's true, that's good. We want inflation to come down. Inflation can happen for a couple reasons. Obviously, there's supply chain things that need to happen, but also the consumer is very actively out spending money. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. Retail sales were abnormally high in January. So people are choosing to spend money even though there's inflation. They're choosing to spend money even though there's chaos. There's a lot going on. Jeez Louise. Yeah, on another side note, kind of getting back into the numbers, Institute of Supply Management non-manufacturing index, it says it declined, right? So decline sounds like a bad word, to 56.5. But you notice on this cute chart, for anyone looking at this, there's a little adorable red line that runs across the 50 number. Anything that's above 50 is considered expansion. So that means,
We're still above that.
Non-manufacturing index is expanding. You come down here to the manufacturing index, so different things, that's still above the 50 line. So, manufacturing is expanding. The Institute of Supply Chain Management is, saying some positive stuff is going on there. So it's tough because, once again, you turn on the news and it is an utter bloodbath, right? You talk to your friends, it's chaos. You look at your accounts, you're upset.
Yeah.
Pick your poison right now.
So true.
There's very little things to feel good about. There's so much anxiety. There's so much stress. And it's tough. And we understand that. And last year I was a little obnoxious. Last week, at least I caught myself. We were a little obnoxious. I included Tana in that, even though Tana said some very rude things. We're a little obnoxious kind of about the idea of, planning your cash flow in retirement.
Yeah.
And the most important thing that you can do is have a proper retirement plan. So when Tana and I build income plans, we try to bucket money into segments and say, okay, the money that we need in the near term, the next number of years, we want to be pretty conservative with it. And the place where we take risk is with the money we don't need for way down the road.
Right.
And so if you build a good, healthy plan that takes that into account, even though things are upsetting right now, the reality is you're still in a good place. You still have your income. You still have your cash flow. You can absorb what's going on. It's still a fascinating phenomenon. As chaotic as things feel, doesn't it feel like everything is horrible, Tana?
Yeah, sometimes it just
does.
Yeah, a big
and
dark cloud. But
as bad as it is, the S&P is only down 9 or 10% this year. It still sounds like it feels like it should be down a ton. It lost 30-40% 2 years ago in 5 weeks.
Right.
We haven't even scratched the surface of that. Yet somehow we all lived through it, right?
Yeah.
And that was 2 years ago. It's just crazy. So, hey, I don't know. What else, Tana? Anything good from Medicare?
Yeah, nothing to talk about with Medicare. I know, there's nothing.
Medicare. All right. Well, call us. If you're freaking out, call us. If you're concerned about your income plan, call us. If you're getting your account statement and you need to talk about it, call us. We are here. This is all we do. This is why we're here. We do a little bit else, but this is mainly all we do.
This is what we love to do.
805-500-7035. Visit our main website, thelindgroup.com. Lind is LYND. And if you need to reach us directly, let me give you Tana's cell phone number and Tana's email address.
Perfect. I don't mind.
Tax season. Get your taxes done.
That's true.
Don't wait till the last minute, everybody.
Very true.
All right. Well, that's good enough for now, Tana. I appreciate you hanging out for this chaos.
Yeah.
All right. I got to play the video. I'm always bad at that part. Why is the closing video the hardest part of this? Bye, everybody.